Well, good evening, everybody, and once again, thank you for joining us on these continued community forums across the Shelton School District. My name is Jeff Slakey from KMAS Radio. We are here at Mountain View Elementary tonight to talk with Superintendent Wyeth Jessee. We also have School Board Member James Dale, Principal Lysandra Ness, and kindergarten teacher JoAnna Bielec. Thank you all for being here once again to talk about the school district and things that are going on. This is an opportunity for folks to learn a little bit more about the school their students go to. This is Mountain View Elementary, finding out how the school year is going and just other ways that we can connect with the community. So as we get started here, I have some questions that I prepared, but as these last ones have shaken out, we've kind of just ended up having a really good conversation specifically about the school for sure. So I'm going to start with you first, Principal Ness. Tell us a little bit about Mountain View Elementary, this school here, kind of the makeup of the students and things like that.
Yeah, so this year, super excited to be here and be a part of the MTV community. I will tell you that the way in which the staff come together to support students and just wrap around everything that is student-centered, they have students always at the forefront of every decision that we make. And so that was something that, we came together at the beginning of the year, make certain that we're all in agreement about why we're here, our norms, our why. And so that was just an easy leverage piece where we all had that agreement. And then the staff really are so, they're just so focused in on how to identify how to help students. And they look at what might those gaps be or what might be those additional supports to move students to that next level. And they just pull together, and they're all about looking at strengthening the students' learning, right? It's not just I came out here and I taught, but how we can improve student learning. And so they're always looking at data. I have never been at a school that has been so just data-driven, so data-focused, and they want to look at those pieces so that they can identify some interventions, implement them, see if that's working, and continue to move forward. And so it's just always the center focus.
How much of that is engaging in the students and trying to hear directly from them, like getting their voice in some of this decision making?
Oh, without a doubt, that's the street data, right? It's that getting in, having those conversations, doing things like conferring with the kids, those small groups, pulling a kid aside and saying, here, read with me, or, working through, the awareness of the phonics and how they blend together and all of those pieces, and hearing what the students are doing, and then being able to provide those next steps and those supports.
JoAnna, talk to me a little bit about the kindergarten school year, how it's going. We're getting close to Thanksgiving break, and then we'll move into winter break, so we're a fair amount into the year already. How are the students?
Well, actually, I have one of my kindergartners out here right now. It's nice to see a familiar face. They're doing amazingly. We started last year in the district a kind of intro to kindergarten called Kindergarten Jumpstart, and it's been really amazing to see what kindergartners were like before the school year started, kind of get their toes in the water of what school's going to be like and where they're at now. You'd be amazed at the independence that you can see in the classrooms when you walk in. And I do have to say that this is genuinely, in my 13 years, one of the sweetest kindergarten classes, or one of the sweetest classes that I've ever had. The children are compassionate and kind and so excited to be at school. And it really, I have moments where I stop teaching and I'm just in awe, and I have gratitude for how amazing they are. So it's been really great.
Is that across the whole kindergarten cohort as well? I mean, that's the sentiment you all have there?
Yeah, I mean, our kindergarten teachers love what we do. We, without a doubt, are early childhood educators who love helping kids to love school and learn those foundations. And some kids, every child is different. There'll be kiddos who have a hard time, but the teachers are there every day, fresh start, ready to help them. And they're a great group of kids.
James, you're on the school board here. We last talked at the Bordeaux Roundtable. So kind of from there to here, maybe looking at both the schools independently, what are you seeing, especially here specifically, that you're really keying in on?
Yeah, and I'll put my cards on the table. I'm a little biased. I like this school a little bit better because my wife teaches up here.
Okay.
And so I agree they have the best kindergarten team around. But I've got to be here a couple of times and see things like the literacy efforts here. So last year I got to come in and read with students and have them read to me. And those are the windows in to see all of the policies, all of the strategic plans that you read on the website actually get into these students. To actually, this rubber meeting the road, and you're seeing the reward for all of the effort. And so last year, as I was sitting there having kindergartners read little things, and then they have no spatial awareness, them crawling right on you to read with you, it just helps you to see the good that is happening in this district. And so both Bordeaux, Mountain View, Evergreen, I've got to see the collaboration. So all the schools are on the same plan, which really feeds into that middle school success.
Last time we met, Wyeth, we talked at Evergreen about how unique that school is in the district, and a lot of the special features that have gone on there for a long time, some 24 years in certain cases. Here at Mountain View, what do you see from your perch as a superintendent about the kind of the shining stars, the spotlights at this school?
Yeah, so Director Dale had it pretty right around, like, they really want to be, they're very team focused here and really trying to build some things up grade level to grade level and preparing their students. There is a good sense of rigor here, and I also kind of two other things that I think of are really designing the educational space. The school does have a lot of pride, both in its makeup in the hallways and in the classrooms, about supporting student learning. I mean, you can see a lot of things that go into supporting literacy, math development, obviously writing. They've done a lot of work around science around here in the library. They used to have a STEM thing before we had our budget cuts. You know, we'd love to bring that back. And then I would also add student jobs. I get a lot of things going on that really help them out. The other piece is just community. So like many generations have gone through Mountain View. So you'll hear a lot of stories of, yeah, my grandmother went here too. And so people really want to build up. And so there's a kind of this real deep-seated need to send my family member to Mountain View. So I've heard that since I got here. A lot of demands for that. Keeps alive, and keeps a lot of those kind of traditions that are really important to Mountain View and the greater community.
Since we're here and since you're just talking, I do want to just kind of get this out of the way. There was some social media stuff last week online about some political clothing. Can you just talk about that? It was at this school, and so it kind of lines in good with where we're here too. I saw comment at the school district board meeting this week, and there was a post on the social media, but could you explain what's going on there for me, Wyeth?
Yeah, so in public education, our primary duty is to obviously keep kids and staff safe, and then also really educate them. We are in the education business. You will see us all around us in the library, you go back in the classrooms, that's the things we're focused on. But through my entire career, no matter which district I'm in, there's always going to be some things that happen that are what we would term a possible disruption to the educational environment. So there's just things that happen. Sometimes they're low level. I think this is a low level incident. Sometimes they get blown out of proportion just because some people want to jump on them. But our job is to be a nonpartisan government agency that does support student learning. And then sometimes, whether it's students, staff, or community members who come in, there might be something that requires us to address. If it's disruptive, in this particular case, anything that symbolizes a political movement or some partisanship, if we have to address, we will. I had a brief conversation, addressed it, staff member did something in response to it, and then we just moved on with the rest of our school day.
Is that a school district policy, or is that a state policy, or where do you get the language to look at when addressing this?
Yeah, so districts are governed really about, RCWs, so there's state laws and rules that we do follow. In this particular case, those are the exact things that we do, again, disruptive to the educational environment. And also, we cannot be a partisan organization. We have to be nonpartisan. I cannot wave any flag or thing that is in favor of any political party or movement, really, just because it gives signals to the kids and the families that we're here for this reason. In all reality, we're, again, public education where we welcome everybody in, and we don't want to just not have that be the kind of welcoming environment that looks like we're only here to serve certain people for certain reasons. And so that's really what it is. Again, I really would like to keep that thing small. I know in this day and age, some things get elevated. That was most certainly not the intent of the Shelton School District. And again, I think this one really was handled really well, quick, brief, moved on. Maybe some people, I think outside of the Shelton School District didn't want to move on, right? Because some things got posted on social media.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. And then we can move on in our conversation here. Folks in the audience, if you have questions, there is note cards there that I'll take. We have had some pre-submitted questions for this as well. Lysandra, tell me about some of the goals here for the overall student body and whether or not that's start of the year, seeing a metric, end of the year, seeing a metric, how the students are getting prepared for the next grade level they're going to. What do you look at in your team meetings and getting folks ready?
JoAnna and I are looking at each other and kind of laughing because I met with the kindergarten team actually today and talking about literacy and comprehension and, being able to start with that foundation in kindergarten to ensure that our kiddos are leaving with the ability to read at the right level for moving into first grade. And so when we look at those pieces and we think about, the metrics that were measured by the state with the SBA, at third grade, it is about building those foundations early on, kindergarten, first and second, and then going on up to third and fourth so that they're also successful to get all 6 credits at the high school and do those types of things. So we really are focusing in on that and having those conversations about, okay, what do we need to do to get our kinders ready to go? And one of the things that I've really been just super appreciative of is our third grade team came together. We looked at data and we looked at, the kids that we believe we can move to being at grade level standard by the end of the year. And it's a lofty goal. It's 57%. But we looked at it and we looked at it, collaboratively. We looked at, all of the different metrics that are out there and talked about what can we do to be intentional about that. So we created Sunrise Scholars, which is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where kids come in at 7:45 to 8:45 to get interventions, and we're seeing it already work. And so that part, we're just really excited. The kids are moving up levels, they're getting fluency down better, and so we're seeing that movement. And then my specialists, which I have one specialist here in the audience, they're coming together and they're also supporting the work to improve literacy as well as attendance, because we also saw that our third graders who maybe could have made it, to standard, they had a lot of absences. And so my specialists are coming together and they're being really intentional and really focused on the kids to celebrate, make, sort of deals with them and interventions with them and get them here so that they can be successful, because if they're not here, then they can't be successful. And so, all of these guys coming together to move the students forward. And then again, all the other grade levels are sharing that same goal around literacy, and we have that same focus so that as we move forward in future years, we're not starting with such a gigantic gap. We are starting out with much more of a solid foundation. Hopefully next year we start off with maybe 40% that are coming into third grade that are already at standard, and we can make it to 60 or 70% and just continue to grow. So just the conversation and the dedication that staff are having, and the students are setting goals themselves, and they are getting excited about the learning that they're showing. So,
JoAnna, can you tell me what the end of the year you're looking for when it comes to reading? Can you explain what your kiddo in the audience here is going to potentially be able to read by the time school's out for parents who may not have students as kindergartners?
I think that one's probably a big shock to a lot of people because kindergarten is not what it used to be. It's extremely rigorous. It's extremely academic. Our students leave kindergarten being able to read. I mean, and it's not just short words. It is long vowels. It is paragraphs. It is full, books, and it's a very wide range for our students. You'll have some that have finally learned their letter sounds because they had hardly any background knowledge when they started kindergarten. But ultimately, the goal is that they are able to read by the time that they leave kindergarten. And when they enter first grade, they have much more complex patterns, but they have solid foundations by the time that they leave kindergarten that they can read and they can write.
Principal also mentioned absences, Wyeth. That's something you and I talk about a lot in the Shelton School District. Can you talk a little bit about that broadly here and what you guys are trying to do to encourage folks to be here every day?
I love this topic, but it's a heavy lift too. It's not easy to sometimes, get students to come to school. It's a habit, right? And so getting into the healthy habit of coming to school every day. I know coming off of COVID, even with little sniffles, come on down. If you're obviously got a fever or you're throwing up, please do not show up. I just want to be really clear. I'm sure Teacher Bielec here does not want that either for her, right? But we as a district recognize, looking at our data, coming off of COVID, because it was just like a new thing, attendance was really rough. Most districts were hovering around, literally 50% of the students showing up, or a little over 50% of the students showing up with 2 or less absences a month on average. So I just think about that, folks. I can't remember. I was talking to actually a number of folks earlier today just about that at one of our high schools. And I was like, can you guys remember that when you were kids, like that many kids being missed in school? And so they're like, no, I can't. And so there's this thing, as time goes on, it becomes kind of this acceptable in some environments to miss a couple days of school a month. And it doesn't seem like much, but when you add that up, and I know they're doing that here as one of their moves from Mountain View, is like trying to send that message, like 2 days, and then 2 more days, like some simple math here, and then 2 more, and then next thing you know, you're like, whoa, your student just missed 15, 20 days. 15, 20 days of instruction, I can tell you any teacher, especially at kindergarten here, I'm thinking, if I said to her, hey, most of your students are going to miss 20 days, oh my gosh, like they're going to miss a lot of really important things. And then you got to try to make it up, and it just kind of snowballs. So, and the unfortunate part coming off COVID is we were less than our comparable districts. We actually averaged, our 44% of our population only made it to school on a regular basis, meaning again, 2 or less absences in a month, 44%. Our percentage has gone up. We're in the high 60s. That's great. We've had tremendous growth compared to other districts like Shelton, same kind of demographic and size. We've had just equal growth, if not exceeding growth, in increasing our attendance. The challenge is just like trying to keep increasing that means new things for us, and we're always trying on new strategies, whether that's the jobs program they have here at Mountain View, tracking and sending messages, right? Engaging curriculum, empowering kid voice. Those are things, reward systems, obviously, but we need to work with our parents and our guardians too to be like, oh, okay, so now when school's in session, please come every day as much as possible and get in there for us. So
I saw the vending machine downstairs with the books in it. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I can talk about the book vending machine.
Please.
The book vending machine was actually purchased by our PTSO a couple years ago, our amazing PTSO. And we've used it a couple different ways over the last couple of years, but really the ultimate goal is to get every child a book every year that they can keep and call their own. It's getting books into kids' hands, and it's like one of the most joyous moments for each child when they get to take their special coin, drop it into the coin slot, and then identify which book they want. And some kids will ask, can I hold on to it? The book I want's back there, 3 layers back, having to wait, in the anticipation. But teachers will use that for attendance. They'll use it as a reward for expected behaviors. There's kind of a couple different ways we use it, but really it is another piece that just brings joy. And if you're not here, you can't get that. And so when kids are here, it's like, oh, yes, you're here today. Let's go do your book, your book token and get your special book that you get to keep forever. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
you mentioned, Principal Ness, a lot of different ways you engage the students outside of the classrooms with the different jobs and things like that. How does the student body, how do they get along together? How's the dynamics?
I find them to be just very caring and kind, and I was watching. Actually, I believe it was the young lady that's in our audience. We had a student who has some additional needs, and I was watching a PE class, and she was sitting alongside and redirecting the student. And helping the student follow along with the directions. And it's those types of moments where you see that empathy that oftentimes is missing in society, and it just warms the heart. And we see that, throughout our building. We see kids taking care of one another and looking out for them. And so just watching, just sitting alongside and guiding the student who doesn't necessarily always have the skills to follow those directions because of additional academic and social needs. It was just heartwarming. And that was, I just saw that during an observation, I think I was on Thursday of last week. And the students are also very encouraging. So we do attendance awards for 0 to 1 absences each month. And we go to the classrooms, we hand them a certificate. We, depending on how many months they've had it, so for the first month they get an otter pop. If they get 2 months, it doesn't have to be 2 months in a row, they get an otter pop and a pencil. And then if they get 3 months, they're going to get an otter pop, a pencil, and a sticker. So it's like accumulating, right? And they get more and more each time they accomplish that. And the students are cheering for one another. And they're also taking a moment to go, oh, I need to be at school so I can get those things, right? And so I'm working with PTSO in regards to popcorn and other types of opportunities to really make certain that we're doing those celebrations. But they're cheering each other on. They get a picture with the teacher, and they're celebrating one another, right? They're just taking care of one another.
James, you mentioned that you have some inside info here at this school, so you may know this a little better than maybe some of your other school board members, but when you hear stories like that, how does it help you as you guys sit around and kind of look ahead to the next few years, make your decisions on the forward movement of the school district?
Yeah, all of those pieces allow you to see what's working and then what needs to keep being addressed. Because teaching is an art form, there's data, but you're working with real humans. And so as I'm listening to everything from the book machine to attendance, you're trying to figure out what is working and what needs to be adjusted. And so all of that data, but all of those experiences, and I do get the privilege of hearing lots of great stories, with everybody's name left out, but lots of great stories from my wife about what happens in this school and what they're trying to do and where they're adjusting. And so I feel like I get a little peek in, even when I'm not touring the schools, to the efforts behind it, which puts, if you're at a school board and you're there for about 2 hours, you don't really get to see the inside things. You got a policy and you're reading through it and you're making sure you aren't breaking laws and you're honoring the community, but this gets you to the reason why you're there. So,
JoAnna, I think if you engage students, even at an age level of kindergarten, with kind of treating them as equals, you kind of give them a responsibility to be part of the whole outcome for the school and the classroom, they seem to hold on to that, take that, and really thrive. Do you see that in your classroom? Have you noticed that even just across the whole school here?
Oh, absolutely. So I've actually taught kindergarten through 3rd grade. So I have kind of a variety of backgrounds. And one thing you'll see when you walk into my classrooms is I'm really big on student independence and ownership. It's their classroom. It's not my classroom. We build it together. And what they want to learn about, I will adjust things to make sure that they are thriving and enjoying school. They get to help decide what kinds of rewards and celebrations we do, but they have the ownership of our classroom and our school. And you'll see that in other classrooms as well. Our teachers really do take value in student voice, whether that's with academic lessons or, like I said, celebrations. but teachers here really value student voice and want their students to feel like this is their space to be proud of what they've learned, proud of the work they've done, all of that. And I think that's throughout our entire school.
Lysandra, it occurs to me then, as you give students voice and ownership of these, they take more pride in the overall school. Maybe there's less trash in the hallways. People pick things up. People are kinder to each other. Is that something that happens here, stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So this week is National Anti-Bullying Week, for example. And so we are focusing, I mentioned that in the morning meeting. I share that we're going to focus on kindness to one another. And we hand out confetti when we see different things. And kids get really excited when they get their confetti. And, they're like, yes, I showed this, I did whatever. And and I'll make a little comment to the student, oh, I appreciated how we had a student who got stuck on the one of the big toys outside, and there's another kid who stayed with him so that he wasn't alone.
Wow.
And so I was like,
that's cool.
Nice job, buddy, and gave him the confetti, and he was super happy. And so, they take pride in those pieces, and they take pride, again, in those jobs that they do. So we have our fourth grade leadership team who goes down to the kinders and walks them out to the buses and gets them lined up and ready to go. We have, other fourth graders that are collecting confetti. We have fourth graders who are going and bringing in the fruit or the vegetables that they get for the day. And so they're working on all those pieces and connecting with the younger grade levels, and they're seeing, oh, these are the leaders in the school. And, I had a conversation with one parent who at first was worried that we were not going to have leadership this year because of losing out on our STEM program. But we're keeping it going because the fourth grade team took that on. So again, that's that coming together, that sense of community in the school to always problem solve, not just admire a problem, but come up with solutions so that we can continue to thrive.
We talked at the Evergreen Forum about the fourth graders getting ready to go to OMS and them being ready, and we heard resoundingly from Paula there that they are overly ready. They're more than ready to be engaged OMS Eagles. And so when they move out of here, you're seeing those same things. And then how does that trickle up to the culture then into junior high, to the high school, part of the strategic plan on safe and welcoming, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I hear a district kind of question here, and Director Dale was also mentioning this too. It's really building a system. And each of the three elementaries have their own unique populations. They have their own unique culture. They have different talents too. I mean, Mountain View is really good at teacher leaders. They have some really good teacher leaders that come across the grade levels. Obviously, Teacher Bielec's a really good leader to help guide kindergarten. So each grade level can really work together to support the kid. Because at the end of the day, if they're not working since they enter the doors here and developing those skills, things can be missed out. So they are thinking about that. What is it that we need to do to adapt so that they're ready to go at Olympic Middle School, right next door? Because that's a lot. It's a lot to have. The students over there build the stamina, making sure they're independent, making sure they're also, not only content knowledge, but also good citizens. They've been working hard on that there, but that's because of the work that was laid as a foundation here at Mountain View, so that those kids can do that without having to take up additional time at OMS. Because when I got here, 3 different schools with 3 different expectations and 3 different ways of doing things means when they get to middle school, they're going to take months to teach those skills. I know we talk about it all the time. I'm like, look, this is a well-oiled machine only because, again, they're working in concert with one another. And that is a district effort, and each school is doing their part to prepare our students each year, because I don't want to lose sight of that, and obviously for that big transition to Olympic Middle School.
How's the family support here when you reach out for assistance, or you reach out to say, this week's anti-bullying week, maybe around an opportunity to talk with your kiddos at home about this and engaging in reading, things like that? What's the kind of parent response you get here?
I have never encountered better parents in my entire life. They are amazing. They come together. They are responsive. They they come in. They have conversations with me regarding how to support the school, how to support their students. Again, they are also looking at problem solving, and they're very, very collaborative. We have a literacy drive going on right now also where, our goal is 100 minutes, a week, and kids get a little tiny palm to put into their class jar, and then the classroom teachers are celebrating. And again, we have that support with our PTSO, we have that support with our parents. It's just been ongoing. And with regards to the bullying piece, it goes out, my Sunday message also to families, how the kids will earn confetti for the week and what that messaging is. And again, it's that ongoing piece where I hear families saying thank you. We hear it, we see it, we celebrate it. They see their students being recognized for the confetti on Fridays. They get the picture taken because we do a drawing. And I'm seeing the parents sharing it out, and they're tagging other family members and like so-and-so, and so they're really they come together. The most caring, the best community I honestly have ever had the pleasure to work with.
JoAnna talked a little bit about this when we were talking about kindergarten reading and how by the end of this school year, students are going to be reading in ways that you may not be familiar with at the end of the time maybe you were in kindergarten. And Wyeth, how do you, and maybe James too, you guys can riff on this a little bit, push forward even more of this responsibility to elementary school students to become even better readers earlier, more understandable when it comes to maybe mathematics earlier, things like that. How are you seeing that move forward over the next couple years?
Yeah, so I think again, telling the story of the journey, 4 years ago, we developed a strategic plan. It has 4 initiatives. One was high quality literacy instruction, but that is bifurcated. One is the love of literacy. So you can teach a lot of students how to read, and they can read and write, but if they don't love literacy, then you'll drop off in the sense of being independent as learners and that critical thinking pieces. And that's what we want for our students. As we move forward, and we've been working on this, we're continuously having to adapt, though, in an environment where expectations that were here just a couple of years ago are not the same expectations. So a lot of the schools had 20 minutes of reading all the way up through 4th grade. That is not going to do the trick. That's nice at the primary grades, but when you get up into 3rd and 4th grade, you're talking about 30, 40 minutes of reading, different kinds of books, different kinds of conversations, getting into book clubs. Those are things that just develop over time because you've been working on it. I know, again, I've been in JoAnna's class a lot of times. She does word work really well, but she keeps coming up with new activities and games, ways kids can engage. These are things that, you keep building on some new things, see what works. Some years this doesn't work, some years that does work. So we just keep building our toolbox, keep adapting, raising the rigor, and getting those kids to be, again, more independent, because I think that is ultimately so they're independent learners themselves as opposed to just focusing on how to read.
We are moving in. Go ahead, James.
Just simply to add, one of the things I've observed place to place, and here in particular, a lot of different types of books, right? So that you're trying to find your just right book, you're engaging that reading level and that enjoyment of literacy that will produce people who will read longer as you get to older grades, but that is done so much. There's so many options to read, and it's fun to walk around a classroom and see somebody has a sports book, and this person has this type of book, and this one has animals, and to see that personality and what they're reading, drawing them deeper into that literacy, so that reading isn't just for those kids, it's for all the students.
One thing I will mention too is as we move into the spring, there will be opportunities to come and read with and read to the students. I was here last year for it. I think you guys were as well. And I was here and at Evergreen, and it's a really cool to see these kids reading books, and you kind of look through them and you go, yeah, okay, let's see how you do. And they're able to get right through it. So there will be those opportunities, I'm sure, that you'll please go ahead.
I would also say we would always welcome volunteers to come into our school.
Yeah, how does that
and-
work? Forms and
Yeah, there's an online form on the district site, or if you want to come into Mountain View, we will help guide you and get you to show you where those forms are at and guide through the filling them out. And we would be more than happy to have you in any of our classrooms to read anytime.
so, JoAnna, I'm gonna ask you this here. What is it to have a parent come in and take the time out of their day to volunteer? I think a lot of parents might be hesitant to be in the classroom with their student, their child, their kiddo, for fear of making them feel like, oh man, my mom and dad are here, or the parents, a teacher may think, why is the parent here? What are they here for? Can you kind of dispel that? I hear it all the time that on both sides, people are like, I don't know if I should go. Maybe they want me there, maybe they don't want me there.
I mean, I think that just boils down to open communication and talking with your child's teacher of like, hey, I'd like to come in. And then oftentimes as teachers, we say, okay, great. What kind of work, what kind of things would you like to do? Would you like to help group, projects, an art project? Because some parents are comfortable with that and some are not. Would you like to read with kids? Would you like to run game stations? Things like that. And just finding out what parents want to do. I love having parent volunteers in. I've had a volunteer in the audience right here helping me out with just some things. It's like, oh, I haven't gotten to that yet. Or, sitting and reading with kids. Last year I had one of my sweet families, one of my students' grandmothers is a former teacher, and she came in once a week, and during our readers workshop time, she would pull a group of 5 kiddos and have story time with grandma. And they loved it. And he got to be part of the group every single time, and it was like this cherished, most proud. And sometimes he'd bring books from home for grandma to read, and sometimes they'd pick some from our classroom library. But it's a really a coveted, really special time to have parent volunteers in, and we really want to partner with our parents because we're a team. We're a team in your child's education, and the more people we can get in, the better.
Because you see them, a large majority of the waking day, you're with those kids.
Yeah.
We got a question here, and let's see if we can get through it. Maybe we'll start with Wyeth and then move into how it works here at Mountain View. There is note cards up there if you also have. The role of a teacher has seemed to change with more hats to wear in the classroom. What steps or vision is there to support classes with larger percentage of students with IEPs and 504s and other social emotional needs, where the teacher is being pulled in so many directions? So both district and school level, whoever wants to start.
Well, I'm old enough to tell you a little bit about a history on this one too. When I've never been a kindergarten teacher, for example. I've taught second all the way through 8th grade. But back before there was class size limits, it was pretty typical to have 28, 30 students of kindergartners in a classroom. That would be blasphemy to today. And there was still high need students back then. So I'll put that there and I'll move on because I'm not trying to create a lightning rod issue. But the expectations for students have changed. That I will add. And that started about 20 years ago. And then the movement was for lower class sizes, K through 3. And then this particular school does have a high percentage of students who receive special education services. More than your typical elementary school out there. It's a full spectrum of special education services are here, meaning that more intensive services are also here, as well as mild and moderate. And so those are elements that come as a surprise, I think, to some people, because disabilities can look different in different ways, and that includes needs for all sorts of modifications to the curriculum, accommodations throughout their day, whether that's physical or social aids, and then also just sometimes behavior. And so when you have those things going on, kids trying out things and communicating through their behavior that might not be looking so fitting society's norms, we have to remind ourselves we're here, young kids, they do things, we're here to teach them and help them get more independent and obviously meeting those state standards, whether that's core academics or around social emotional. So they do a good job here. They really work together as a team to think about how can we support our students. But those things, the job, the hats that educators have, these have been long-standing things. They just look different in different ways and different ways to respond to things that are maybe ways that were used in the past that are not as effective as some of the strategies that are applied today that maybe require more training and more work, that's for sure. And we don't get paid much to provide more additional training for our staff. On average, it is 40 hours a year of additional monies for professional development per educator. That's a lot of time. That's usually, if you're following adult learning theory, is really just about getting one or two skills. And so that puts things in a rub where we want to do this, you got to get this, how do you find the time and effort around the training that's just required?
Yeah, how do you work in kind of this space where there's a finite number of hours in the day, there's a finite number of helpers, teachers to share that load, I guess, or how do you work through that here?
Well, I think about JoAnna, and she has a young student who we problem solve together. So we sit down and we have a conversation about a kid who, how can we provide that next level of challenge? So, she's got a kid that requires a little bit more time and focus and can read off the charts. I think we're still trying to figure out what level the kid is reading, right? And so having that time to collaborate and talk and problem solve, as well as, making certain that we have the right supports and making certain that we are talking about what is or isn't working. And it has to be that ongoing conversation piece about, again, problem solving, not just not just admiring the problem, but coming together to look at what can we do to support. And we have a teacher whose sole focus is around social emotional learning. We have our counselor, and we bring the team together to talk about what are the supports, what's needed, what's some of the data that we're seeing. Is it a student who might be struggling in math, and that might be a triggering moment for them that's causing them to have some sort of work avoidance, basically, right? And okay, how can we make this, what can we do so that they want to be there and they want to engage in the math? And so we have a team of teachers who come together, another staff that come together to problem solve and then develop a plan to make certain that we have the right supports and the teacher feels supported. And it doesn't always work perfectly, right? And then we go back to the table and we have those conversations again until we get it right, so the kid does get those right supports.
It was either the last school board meeting or the previous, the board and you, Wyeth, and Finance Director Clinton Sherman finalized some numbers regarding the upcoming levy in February. So these are opportunities now to kind of explain here specifically, let's start with that on Mountain View, where some of those dollars fit in and what you see from your perspective as superintendent there.
We only have 17 minutes. All right, so I'll just jump in here. We've had a lot of conversations, so I just up front just want to invite people, not to be able to cover all of that in this conversation, but they can check on our website. We have updated information. We have handouts that are on PDF. We have a calculator. We have everything that you could imagine. And if you have questions, you can always email Clinton Sherman or myself. Happy to answer it. So I just want to get that information out front because then some of this does get technical. But, for a district like this, 12.5% of our budget comes from the levy. So it's an $85 million budget is our annual budget. It's a fixed income. There's not another way to get additional dollars. You do rely on that levy out of that $85 million. So that for us is, 10, it'll grow over time with inflation and budgets, but you're talking about $10 million right now in today's dollars out of that 85 is coming from the levy. And it funds everything. And I think in the past people thought, it's going to fund some of the enrichment things. Well, these dollars pay for insurance. utilities, maintenance costs. They cover athletics and activities, all of that expense. You cannot use general fund dollars to pay for that. I think that comes as usually as a big surprise to people because they go, wait, what would happen to the sport, especially, at the, the middle grades and especially in the high school. People don't realize how much that is, the cost for that does come from, again, the levy. And then we have what they call basic ed enhancements. And those enhancements really are everyone because the state, for example, the teacher salary, average teacher salary that we're going to get from the state is $77,000. Our average teacher makes $95,000. How do you cover that gap for every one of those staff members? Is it come from the levy? And so that's what makes this tricky to explain sometimes because you're like, well, you're going to still have to have teachers. I mean, JoAnna Bielec knows she's going to have a job whether the levies are not going to be passed. The problem is to cover not having those levy dollars to top off her salary. That's going to have to come from the basic ed side of your budget, and those dollars are going to have to cover the rest of a salary for a typical teacher, and then that's going to leave less for other things that the levy would normally, would help fund, and then we could use some other dollars from the state, but we have to shore that up because our basic responsibility is going to be that there's a classroom teacher and that we have an administrator and that we have a front office person because you're going to have to operate. Everything else really starts to really move, either will be significant curtailed or no longer will be available. And so, all that, like all of the other things, those are just because it's $10 million. We had to cut budget for 2.3, and we were to shave away some things that were non-staffing dollars. Those things are gone, so this is going to be strictly right into staffing for $10 million. So one could easily start to calculate what that starts to look like when a teacher's around 100,000, just trying to round around numbers, 100,000. Paraeducators are $35,000, $40,000 that you can start to build out those expenses.
And again, that information is on the school district website. Got another submitted question. We have one that was online with just about 10 minutes left. I have a few more things that I want to ask, but this is, I can't wait to hear this answer here. How can we make state testing less stressful for both teachers and students? So maybe some things you do here to help the kids prepare for these state testings, and then what the school board can do, the superintendent can do to make it less stressful.
So one of the things that I see, and I've done, K through 12th grade, all sorts of testing, and it's about really creating that normal environment, right? Having them feel comfortable, having them just recognize, like, it's okay, right? You have as much time as possible. So just kind of removing those barriers and letting them know that, they're going to be just fine, as well as you can gamify it a little bit in regards to, like, the kids take their MAPS testing and go, okay, so this is what MAPS shows now. Let's see what you can do on the SBA, right? Let's see you top that. And so, getting that, gamifying that piece, and I think that one, going from 3rd to 4th grade, I think it's easy for us to then look at that next year when the 3rd graders come back as 4th graders, and to be able to celebrate and say, look, you beat what what the MAPS predicted you were going to do. Look at how you achieve this piece, and get that kind of the culture and the norm that it's you're going to have time. You can take as long as you want and take it serious, and it's okay. You're going to be okay. And just getting that practice, right? And just reminding them, we're practicing every day. We're practicing. It's good. It's good. It's good. And just realizing that we're building those skills for them, and we're providing those opportunities for them to be successful.
I'd imagine, too, it's important in a kindergarten to start with that as you kind of look to normalize the testing process. So it is when it shows up, there's not a lot of
Test
anxious.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do assess in kindergarten, and we do not use computers to assess them at that level, but they do take their first computerized assessments when they jump into first grade. But we check in with our kids all the time. We talk about the data with them, like, oh, this week we did so well on these ones. These are some skills that we need to work on. What goals can we set with you to move forward? And so it is kind of a foundation at the kindergarten level to looking at not necessarily like performance, but seeing their strengths, like, wow, you did so well on this, and here are some areas that we need to support you on so that you can feel successful, and then helping them to know the tools that they need to be successful on those assessments. So once they get into first grade, it really becomes a lot more comfortable, and that a first online assessment is oftentimes not the best data because half of them don't know how to use a computer yet, and that's one of the big hurdles for them. But like Ms. Ness said, gamifying it is a really helpful way to make it feel less stressful.
Wyeth?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, they just gave some really good examples, both of them, about what the things that you do to prepare. And I go, I'm going to go up to the 30,000 foot level here. Is, I'm going to keep advocating that, some of those assessments are rigorous, and especially for our multilingual learners. Sometimes that assessment, there's no such thing as a perfect assessment, so just putting that out there. And then sometimes, what is that assessment assessing? Sometimes it is hard, especially for kids who are from more marginalized populations, people who lived in poverty, or again, multilingual populations. They might not have familiarity with some of the background of what's in the test. That is a real challenge. And one of the answers here you're hearing from JoAnna is like, you got to get to know your kid, and you're using different assessments. You know them, like, oh, this wasn't really the skill. This wasn't a really skill. This is just a background knowledge issue, maybe for some of the students. And so those are the things that skilled educators use, because they use multiple assessments. The high stakes stuff is there. It does have a real purpose, though, because without some ability to have a standardized assessment across the state and across states, then it can start to lose impact on our ability whether we are meeting the mark for what students should be able to do or not do at each grade level. And when every state starts to go its way alone, we can start to water down what we have as far as our expectations for them. And I will just have to add, you are in the district with the #1 literacy growth for third grade in reading and writing right here since COVID. So we've been working really hard on that, and that is through the Smarter Balance Assessment, as Ness was saying. And so we'll continue, but for us, I just don't think, we try to address that, gamify it, give up some strategies, and try to make some of those things feel like that's their experience they're getting on a regular basis, as opposed to just landing on a test and making it overly stressful, because we don't ultimately want that for our students.
Our final submitted question came in before we started, and I think this is a good one. It may relate to the elementary level. It may be higher, so we'll just see who wants to answer this. How can the local nonprofit soccer club, Shelton FC, partner better with the school to encourage families keeping their kids active through sports?
I can speak to that.
Please.
I don't know if it's been 3 years now, started doing after-school sports at the elementary level. Soccer is one of the ones that we're trying to offer, which is really great. I will also say that I coach with the Shelton FC.
Oh, okay.
I have stepped in to coach when there's not enough coaches for both of my children, and I seem to do it with every sport. So we definitely, in our community, do need more families to step in and coach our kids, but I think it's something, I don't know about the partnership, but we can definitely talk more with the Shelton FC with our after-school programs and see if we can have that kind of partnered together to keeping our kids active in sports. We have a good turnout for the soccer program, but volunteers is what we need, and if maybe we could find some ways to partner with that after school, that'd be great.
And if you've never heard of that before, they have the soccer fields over by MCRA where they hold bluegrass from the forest every year. They're nice fields as well. Anybody else want to take that?
I don't have too much there, except I know Derek, who's
Yeah.
part of that. And And I think the heart there is students need, particularly as you go through middle school and high school, those places to find your identity and keep you connected. And I know that our nonprofit Shelton Soccer really wants to encourage that in the schools, and so that connection there, I think they're looking for is how do they help? They're here they want to cheerlead that, because they know though it's not the only path. Athletics in school helps students show up, keep your grades up, gives them a why, gives them a community. Which is funded by.
I just want to, as a former soccer coach at the high school level, I would also say that it's a great opportunity to have those high school level kids to come and support maybe at an elementary and come alongside one of the other coaches and join in and get the kids excited. And then the kids look up and they go, oh, a mentor, and they see that this is what I can achieve. And so that's another opportunity.
Very cool. Very cool. Keep that microphone. What is up in the future here for Mountain View as we move into Thanksgiving, winter break? Are you guys doing any assemblies? What's going on?
Yeah, our music teacher left. She's got all sorts of things coming. I think at the tree lighting event, our choir is
the choir's
performing.
Gonna sing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and then we're going to be here doing the 15 days of winter, and so every day will be something fun for our students and staff to get involved in. And then what else do we have going on?
This Thursday, we have a PTSO event. Everyone can come to Glow Bingo. It's very fun. Last year, we had to bring out more tables because it was such a packed house. It's a great time. And yes, we have the Winter Carnival coming up on the 12th of December.
And then, JoAnna, hope for the kids for the end of the year, not the end of this calendar year, but the end of the school year. What would you like to see kindergarten and then the overall student body transform into? I guess I'm not really sure.
Oh, gosh. Well, I kind of wrote down an answer that does not quite match that. Well, I mean, for all of our students, I'm going to speak kind of for all of our teachers and I guess myself, but we really hope that our students leave every school year feeling like they accomplished more than they ever could, believing in themselves. We always hope that they can read and have met their academic standards, and that they leave each year knowing that they're loved and proud of themselves, and that there's always a teacher here to cheer them on.
Home of the Vikings, Mountain View Elementary, thank you so much. Principal Ness, JoAnna as well, Superintendent Jessee, and James, thank you for being here. No further questions from the audience, and that pretty much wraps it up for me, so thank you very much.